Hello, beautiful seekers, and welcome to Moon Magic and our discussion for the Virgo New Moon on September 17th. This moon is so powerful and beautiful and healing and nurturing and grounding, and I think a lot of the elements that we're going to be working with here during this new moon phase is going to be really helpful for many of us who maybe have been feeling the intensity of Mars retrograde, which recently began on September 9th, or are feeling just some of the intensity of closing out these last few months of lessons that we're learning in Capricorn. So I find that working with Virgo energy is one of the best ways, being here in the physical, being here in life, to be present with it and to work with it. And I've gotten more and more aligned and in tune with Virgo energy throughout my life. And so this moon speaks deeply to this type of self-respect, wholeness, self-understanding, and integrity energy that I think really helps us come back to a place that allows us to bear witness to the world and be connected with it. So I think it's an important moon, and it's coming at a time when I think we all need a little bit of this, a boost of this energy in the context of everything else. So this new moon is happening with the sun and the moon meeting at 25 degrees of Virgo. And Virgo energy, let's just start there before we get into aspects. Virgo energy is so beautiful. It's so tied to harvest goddesses. Imagery like Persephone and Demeter are really tied to Virgo energy. When you think of more of the agricultural traditions, there's many goddesses that fit into this Virgo energy. So she's very tied to rebirth and regeneration and deep healing. The Virgo-Pisces axis is all about deep healing in the physical and on the soul level and how we show up in our lives. And so this Virgo new moon, automatically every year, the Virgo new moon is going to give us a hit of that energy. And it's going to help us to tap into that part of ourselves, how we show up to ourselves, how we respect ourselves in the daily practices of our lives, how we respect ourselves with how we treat our bodies, with how we think of ourselves, the words we use toward ourselves. And you know, Virgo is a Mercury ruled sign, which means that thoughts and ideas, the way we use our word, be impeccable with your word is one of the 4 agreements. Being impeccable with your word towards yourself is crucial whenever you're working with Virgo energy. Being impeccable with your actions toward yourself is also really powerful. So right away, this new moon brings us that message. The term Virgo is associated with virgin as well, right? And we often get taught about that as a very specific concept that has to do with sex. But virgin, that term virgin, of course, language is so complex, and there are so many different ways that's been translated over the years and culturally understood. But one of the older meanings behind that word is to be in integrity, to be in wholeness with yourself, right? Just concepts of purity and virginity have gotten turned into something very specific in a lot of our cultures, but they often are referring to this deeper spiritual wisdom of the integrity we have within ourselves, right? That we feel that we are really within this holy place within ourselves, and that we allow ourselves to go there. And one of the first things this moon wants us to do, and I'll get into why very shortly here, is because we may feel shattered right now. You know, you may feel as though you have to be shattered into a million different pieces and trying to fit into these different pockets. Maybe it's with people around you, or with different hats you have to put on at this moment, or with feeling like you have to make your voice smaller because you don't know really where it fits into the picture, or feeling like you're not allowed to be who you are because all this stuff is going on in the world, and what does that mean? And there may be a sense of this shattering that's been happening, or just dividing yourself up into strange clumps and shapes. This new moon invites us back into that whole integrity, that calm, loving, soothing space at the center of who we are. And that's why when I sat with this moon and I've been sitting with it, the message is very simple and very clear. You know, coming back to that wholeness, coming back to that integrity, coming back to that impeccable practice with the words we use toward ourselves, the incantations we put on ourselves day in and day out, and being and feeling the sacredness of words. and their meaning. Now, part of this empowerment in being whole and being in integrity and being kind and loving and nurturing in our ritual and in our incantations has to do with a big trine going on. Saturn is doing a perfect trine with this new moon. Saturn is always wanting to get involved in our moons these days, I feel like. But Saturn is trining this time, giving a very supportive energy here. Saturn is trining 25 degrees, perfect trine. And Pluto, not that far away at 22 degrees, is also trining this new moon. Now, these two have important lessons to impart. On the collective, absolutely. Also individually, when you're working with this new moon, a trine, like I said, is going to be supportive. And this is all earth energy, right? These are all Sun and Moon in Virgo, Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn. It's very earthy energy. So it wants to give us truth. Give us honesty, give us consistency, give us grounding, give us deeper understanding. And I actually think this can help us with our growth into integrity, into coming back to our wholeness. Because as much as I'm a big fan of being fiery and creative and playing around, or being a little bit more amorphous and rolling with our deeper inner knowing, or being a little more air-like and getting to float and explore, sometimes it's so helpful to just feel that sense of empowerment within, just being here with yourself now. And we can get fractured by everything going on, by all the information coming at us every single day. You know, it's very easy to feel as though you've been turned into particles and pieces of yourself. So this moon really, both Saturn and Pluto want you to feel empowered, want you to feel grounded and anchored in who you are, and feel really proud of that and feel really strong in that. And I think there's something so powerful with that. And like I mentioned, this new moon is happening just a little over a week after Mars started his retrograde. And one of the first things, you know, we're not doing a whole Mars retrograde discussion in this video, but one of the first things that I'm noticing with this transit is that some people are going to feel more agitated because of it than others. You know, some people may feel a little bit more agitated, more opinionated. Kind of the comments you see on the internet that are very opinionated, want to close something down, want to be right, you know, kind of a little bit intense like that, can be coming up. And it doesn't just have to be internet comments. It can be, you know, in friendships or in dialogues of any kind. You may be noticing that. And one of the first things we may want to do is make ourselves smaller, right? And say, like, and just inside of ourselves. It's not so much about making other people hear us at this time. That's not necessarily the goal. But we can sometimes see all this going on externally to us, see the different viewpoints clashing and not wanting to see each other, and then want to shut down our own voice inside of ourselves and say, I need to make myself smaller. Oh my gosh, like, I can't add to this world, like this is too much, right? And this moon isn't necessarily saying you have to throw open the doors and scream at the top of your lungs, but it is going to ask you to be with yourself. You know, be in that kind, whole integrity place. And to not let people who don't know you, who aren't connected to you, mitigate or change that about you, right? So there is some agitated energy in the air with the Mars retrograde. Now, I don't think Mars retrograde is a bad transit at all. It's very empowering. It gets to some really deep honesty. It helps us, it's going to help us heal the inner masculine. And that's something I wanted to just note here very quickly, is that Mars and Lilith are getting very close together in Aries during this new moon, and they are squaring that Saturn-Pluto situation. So there's another side, and it's not specifically the moon. This is just to contextualize the moon. There is something going on here with healing that part of ourselves that feels like it has to make itself heard, be in control, be in charge, be loud, be aggressive. It's asking us to come back to a deeper truth within us. It doesn't really need to be broadcast all the time. Maybe it will at some point. Maybe you'll be sharing that voice. Maybe you'll be expressing that, but it's, you know, the first step in any kind of integrity when it comes to the work you do in the world, or how you love people, or how you love yourself, is going to be to find that peaceful space within yourself that says, this is true for me, right? It's when you really are sitting with yourself and you know that you want to stand in that integrity, that there's something powerful there. Even if it involves like righteous anger, which if Lilith is involved, the feminine righteous anger is a very powerful thing, and I don't want to downplay that at all. However, I don't want to get too caught up in that square, because what's really powerful here is this new moon on this day. And over the next few, or around the few days around this new moon, is really to come back to this place of deep healing. Now let's pull 3 cards. The number of creation and flow. And, you know, with the trine energy, 4 of Pentacles, you know, we just couldn't resist a 4 of Pentacles, could we? The Tower, okay. The card of the year. And Knight of Cups. Wow. I think you can all sit with me here in agreement that we are working with some very different frequencies. And the first thing it makes me think about is how, I mean, this is true, honestly, this has always been true in the world we are in, that you can tap into different frequencies, different storylines, different ways of viewing the world. And I'm sure many of you have been playing with this throughout your lives, and depending on what's going on, you know, you're going to tap into different ways of seeing your existence, your life, what it means. But when I look at these 3, what I see is 3 very different lenses through which to look at the world. And when I'm talking about integrity and wholeness and just being with yourself and being impeccable with the way you talk to yourself, being impeccable with the way you're treating yourself, this Virgo new moon is really helping us, like, just take a second and say, hey, like, how are you talking to yourself right now? How are you treating yourself well in the day? And where are you betraying yourself or crossing your own boundaries? All of that, right? And part of that is looking at this. What I see is 3 different ways of looking at the world, and everybody's kind of playing around with where they are. And maybe in a given day, if you're stressed or if there's a lot going on, you might tap into all 3 of these frequencies throughout that course of that day. I know I've had days like that this year where one, it'll be like going way too slow and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to make that move. And then another day it'll be like, oh my gosh, everything is changing so fast. And then another day I'll feel like everything is perfect. I'm in this beautiful flow of life. I've definitely had days where all 3 perspectives have joined me, or I have tapped into each one of them. But these each do represent, I think, a different way you may be noticing you're working with this moon. The 4 of Pentacles is such an important part of the process. I always say that, you know, a lot of times when people get this card in a reading or they see it, they say, oh gosh, you know, like scarcity. But the whole thing here for me, you know, 4 in tarot is all about that moment that you understand something, but you take the moment to understand it, right? You don't just run off to the next part of the story. It's important to just be here with this. 4 of Pentacles is that understanding that movement is happening in our lives and that we are going to move forward and we are going to embrace what is next. But what has to happen is we are going to have to take, you know, those first steps, not actually knowing how everything is going to play out. And it's that important moment of choice where the discomfort of staying and the discomfort of growing, like the discomfort of staying becomes greater than the discomfort of growth or change. And it's important to feel this fully in order to have a healthy sense of growth and change. Now, one way you can look at that is to say that there's nothing and there is no growth and change, and I'm going to stay here in the familiarity of the discomfort of staying. And some people are tapped into that frequency at different times, right? Tower is a transformer, right? And we are in these times where, I mean, honestly, at this point, I think many of you can agree that we've been working with Tower energy a lot of 2020, this idea of things crumbling down and new bridges being built and trying to understand the back and forth of that conversation. Many of us are already very used to working with Tower energy. Now, I personally love Tower energy because it's liberating. It's liberating us from old paradigms that keep us imprisoned, right? That keep us held back. And weirdly enough, you know, with our discussion about integrity, I think sometimes we think that it's just about burning things down. And yes, I know the Tower is definitely got strong imagery of destruction, taking things down, dismantling. I do actually think the Virgo new moon is a little bit more proactive than that. When you feel integrity and love for yourself and respect for yourself and respect for who you are in the world, and you follow that up with thoughts toward yourself and, you know, even rituals in your day, in your life, in your week that respect you, that is revolutionary. That is revolutionary. And it is something that we are often not taught. Now, what happens when we take those proactive steps? And they're very small, they're very quiet, you know, they don't immediately, I mean, they can actually have some pretty immediate changes, but it's not about the external world, it's about this experience you're having. But what happens when you do that proactive work is that it dissolves the illusion of these prison walls. It dissolves the illusion of this construction around you, right? And it is interesting to me because Virgo is about the details. It's about how we show up right here, right now, in the very depth of the whole experience and the magic of that. But how wildly that changes our lives. How powerful. Like, it is not small stuff, even when it seems like it's small stuff. And that's the thing. There's some change and growth, right? There's some asking to be okay with the unfamiliar right now. That is what's coming up. But look what the promise is here. Knight of Cups. I love Knight of Cups because unlike these other two cards, this is the idealist card, right? This is idealist energy. It is all about how if we believe in beautiful things, you know, we believe in the beauty of connection. We believe in the beauty of belief. We believe in the beauty of helping each other. We believe in the beauty of romance, of creating, keep exploring, keep showing up to the table. There is something really good there, and it's more real than it has ever been. That has never been taken away, no matter what crazy stuff is going on. This is always there. In our fragility, in our unknowing, in our uncertainty, the Knight of Cups is always here, and he's right there with this process. And I love that message so much. I'm getting full body shivers and even getting a little emotional here with this discussion. Yeah, this is a moon of self-respect. And like I said, this is a great, new moons are so powerful for setting new intentions, for sitting in that darkness with ourselves and just feeling, right? Rather than being inundated with the brightness of the full moon, and the intensity of that sensory overload. A new moon is this beautiful space where you feel at that, you sense at a much deeper level. And this is a beautiful moon to tap into what you want to speak to yourself, what you want to say to yourself, where you want to maybe add some magic into your life. And it can be very small. It can be the intention of lighting a candle of an evening and taking 5 minutes to say kind things to yourself. That could be it. And you could do that once a week, and that's a fantastic addition. It can be to ask for help. You can set an intention to ask a friend for help and ask them to talk to you. It can be, you know, anything. I mean, depending on what's going on in your life. And it doesn't always take huge resources either. It doesn't require huge investments of things. It doesn't require that you suddenly have an overflow of time. It doesn't require you to be different than who you are right here in this moment. I think that's, I'm going to come back to that message time and again in this discussion. This moon is not asking you to be something different than what you are in this very moment. It's not trying to get you to run away from who you are and be some other fantasy version of who you think you're supposed to be and who you think you're supposed to be by September 17th, 2020, or by the end of 2020, or any other time. It's saying, hey, what's your integral wholeness right now? Because there's something there that wants to be heard and that is important and that has a role to play here. And that's more powerful than anything in this life. So I'm looking forward to this new moon. I think it has such good, nurturing, loving energy to give us. Enjoying the last little bit of time we have here in Virgo season, because soon after this new moon we will be heading into Libra season. We will be heading into a lot of new adventures with energies. So I hope you have a beautiful new moon. We will be doing a follow-up activation over on my Patreon if you're looking for more support there. We're also doing deep Mars retrograde discussions to deeper understand that transit, to work with it live while it's happening every single week. So if you're looking for a great little community, I'd love to see you over there. To those of you who are already with me, you know how much I love you. I will see you also soon for our next full moon and readings ahead. Have a beautiful new moon in Virgo. I'm sending you all my love.